How is everyone tonight? Um, I'm kind of amused. I'm looking over the comments, and Ben, who is usually my lurker, is the only person actually talking out of the people in the comments so far. So, Ben, welcome. I hope the rest of you will at least pop in to say hello, even if you're doing other
Right.
things while you're listening. So we are talking science fiction tonight, and I am especially interested in this genre when it comes to indie games because there seems to be kind of a glut of indie games developing, which I think is great. Obviously, not all of them will stick around, but that's the nature of the market. But I think it encourages, more competition and more creativity, and I always say we rise together. And yet, science fiction seems to be getting overlooked a lot. Um, this was the genre I had the hardest time finding people for, um, and I thought that that was kind of interesting and sad all at the same time. You get some post-apocalyptic kind of stuff, but it isn't usually kind of science fictiony. So I'm really interested in talking to everyone that we have here tonight. As always, we'll do some quick introductions while the chat is coming in and getting settled a little bit. And then we'll say hello to the chat, and then we will start talking games. So, from the very, very early morning time zone, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into gaming, and what your role is now.
Hello. My name is Marcin Gerkowicz. I'm from Poland anyway, so now it's quite early, very early here. So I do not came from, let's say, strictly RPG fandom. I was always big fan of all miniature war games, and I'm playing miniature war games for 25 years, more or less. More, 28 years. And I was always very fascinated with developing the rules, which resulted that a couple of years ago, time is passing, so it was many years ago, I started my own publishing company as a secondary business called Assault Publishing. And I created a couple of indie games here. I released them in English with very limited commercial success. So after a few years, it was year 2016, I closed this as a business and went completely uh, into complete non-profit activity in my hobby. I wanted to have a hobby back, not second work after my main job. So one of my main game and my flag product was PMC 200, 26070. This game was released 4 years ago as a second edition. 4 years ago, the first version was released a couple of years earlier, and I was always not fascinated only with building of the rules itself, but also with world building. So I created all fluff and everything which is needed to for make a good war game. So, and a few years ago, my friends start to me, okay, the fluff is very good, the story is very good, do something with it. Write a story, write. Even someone told me, write a novel. Come on, I'm not, I don't want to write any novel. So, uh, about year and a half ago, I started an RPG project. It was simple called 267. This is a typical indie game, very deeply rooted into this miniature war game. So I borrow it and simplified the combat system, the action system. I borrowed all logic of the test and so on. I start to cut all these rules from the miniature
Can
war game. Yes.
can we hold most of the game stuff until after intros are done? Because I want to the people are still coming into the chat, so I want to make
Okay.
sure no one misses anything.
Okay. Not a problem.
That's all right. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page.
Okay.
Um, so Seth and Travis, you are both with Interaxion Games. I don't know what your positions are, so why don't you give us a little rundown each?
Sure. My name's Seth. I think you asked how long we've been role playing. Personally, I started in the seventh grade. That is, well, I think Moses was one of my classmates, if that gives you any indication. It's been a while. I've been playing in this hobby for a couple of decades now. Um, Travis and I are partners. We're working at Interaction Games, developing a game called Altered World that we're real excited to bring to folks. So excited to see all these people in the chat. Hope you guys feel like asking questions and engaging with us. We've got a lot to talk about with our game. There's some pretty cool lore. The game itself has a really cool story about how we got here. So if you guys are interested, you know, pipe up, ask questions. We've got a pretty long spiel that we can go into. We'll try and keep it as exciting and interesting as we can as we go. So Travis, I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah. So, like Seth said, we don't really have roles. I think of Seth as the um, pie in the sky idea man, and I tend to be the um, uh, stick in the mud curmudgeon. Um, and
In other words, I'm the one who makes Travis's blood pressure go up frequently.
only occasionally. I think I've been gaming a little bit longer than Seth. My first experience with gaming was probably when I was about 8 or 9 years old. So that's like around 37 years at this point, 36 years. But then he and I have been like best friends since the seventh grade. And so um, we both were involved in the early development of this game back in the late 90s. And that's kind of where we sit. Um, yeah, really excited to see questions and interact with people and tell people about what we got. So
Excellent. And I think you have me beat. Last time I dared do the math, I think I've been gaming for 35 years.
yeah, there's probably a couple years in there for me that don't really count. Well, so definitely, I had a 17-year gap between 3.5 and 5e. So, uh, but I was still always interested in it.
I gave up on D&D um, while AD&D was still a thing because then
Mm-hmm.
someone introduced me into other genres
Yeah.
and I went, "Oh, D&D isn't very good." So I keep joking that I gave up on D&D before giving up on D&D was cool. So, okay, so we have a few more people wandering into chat. We have Rachel. Um, Rachel, is your fundraiser still running? If so, I'm sure Rachel will throw a link in there. We have Eraserhead, who is the mod. Well, he's one of two mods, but our other mod seems to be missing currently. So, for tonight, he apparently is the mod. He will get me links before I even know I need them. He's already gotten links up for both your games. And he will continue to do so as we're talking.
Nice.
We have Hanayama-san, who is probably here to cause trouble, but we love him anyway. And Guardian of the Ancient Gates, who I think is the first time in the chat. So, and then we have a whole bunch of lurkers because there are a lot more people watching than are actually talking. So, yes, Eraserhead is the link master. Yes, and thank you, Eraser. There is Rachel's fundraiser. Rachel needs to move, so moving is expensive and difficult these days. So if anyone has some loose change in their couch that they can throw in her direction, that would be wonderful. I know this time of year is kind of terrible for moving and finding extra money. So, oh, just you two being. Well, what I was referencing was that this is the first time that name has been in the chat. So, um, it's always interesting when YouTube decides to just shuffle accounts around on people. I have a couple of other people that happens to. So, okay, so we will greet other people as they come in or decide they want to talk. Please do post your questions as you have them. I will make note of them and slip them into the conversation wherever it works well. And let's talk some games. So you were saying you started out with a war game,
Yes, indeed.
which I think might be how I think out of all of my friends, I'm the only one who didn't start out wargaming. So tell us more.
Yeah. Okay. So I focused on first complete niche war games, as I'm obsessed with everything which is flying and is heavier than the air. I designed games like maybe you noticed like Sturmovik Commander, like Hind Commander later. I made a war game like Shadows Devoid about starfighters, and a couple of other mostly forgotten at this moment. So I will not let's say dig in it. But it led me to one moment when I wanted to have, as I told before, a hobby back. I quitted all commercial activity, but still I like to write games, write the rules, checking new solutions. And I made the RPG game as a variation at the beginning to just a completely side project, some form of experiment the game settled in my universe I created. At the beginning, I thought that it could be something cool to try with my friends. Why not? So I tried, and it was really cool. So I push it forward, and do it or do it not. There is no try. So I I do this project quite quickly because all game development lasts less than 1 year, especially that I've got plenty of mechanics ready and borrowed from my miniature war game. So this is it. It's not only this is it, but it's also a universe, spaceship combat, and a lot of another things.
Can you hold them up so we can see the art again?
Yes.
I caught the first one, but I kind of missed the other two.
This is the main rule book. Everything is a separate PDF, so everybody can download it for free. Just register on my webpage and you can get it. This is the main rule book, 35 pages, and this is nearly everything which you need to use during your sessions. We call them episodes. This is a expanded word description, my universe description, with history from 22nd to century to 27th century, of course, brief history, and the description of short description of 46 star systems with planets and brief history and something like that, just to show that it's a quite wide and varied universe. Of course, you need not to keep your adventures in it, but in these worlds, you can do it everywhere you want. But it was just to show it. Here there is a separate expansion. It's spatial combat rules, and these rules are intended to be not like a rule set within a rule set, but something like how to say it, a cover for RPG rules. So if you use space combat rules, you play it exactly like an RPG. So you've got a small map of your spaceship. Players move like on a board. Many systems makes repairs and everything which can be made during a combat. So, of course, it's not everything. There is a separate short documents like common items or skill lists. Because all the game, I focus on these skills. The game itself is generally skill based. It's not a statistic based, but skill based. So, and main role as a players and main aspect of the role playing in this system is to find a solution using a portfolio of skills your character has. One of my friends named this game as a problem-solving RPG. And this is the most accurate way how I can describe it, because there is a completely different skills from completely different areas. Your character can be skilled in combat, in technical, in science, in survival, and social and psychological. So, how it works? You've got 72 different skills you can gain. Your games, or during your games, you can gain experience, spend, and improve your skills. But also from starting professions. Of course, soldier will be better skilled for killing, scientist for research, technician can be in the repairs or to patching, to hacking, and so on. But generally it's not fixed, and your characters can develop in completely different areas during the sessions. So if you became a soldier, okay, I'm not good at soldier, I wanted to be a bookkeeper. Why not? My mother told me that a bookkeeper was a better job. It's also possible. But how it works in practice? I like all the example with locked doors. Imagine your team got locked doors. So, of course, technician can try to hack it, or make a short circuit. Soldier can try to shoot through these doors. Next, something with psychological skills can find and persuade somebody to open it. If you got special skills like contacts, you can call somebody and ask for codes, and so on. And this is only the doors. So the players got all portfolios or portfolio of skills, and they have to use it properly to create. And such approach creates a very great stories. Very flexible approach. The game is very flexible in terms of rules, in terms of role of the overmind, which is the term for game master. And to together with Game Master, all these skills, all this portfolio of different skills, of different characters, can build really, really good stories, good adventures, because there is always a different solutions. And if the people focus what their characters can do, is the best. And it's not only the aspect of the rules itself, but generally it's focused on the real role playing. But also, this game is not only the rules themselves, because my dream was always to make a complete game ecosystem. The game, as I mentioned, was developed from the war game, and it shares a lot of ideas, a lot of rules, etc. So it loves the maps. So at the beginning, I started with big, beautiful printed maps for my games, like that one, for example. This is A1 map.
That is nice.
Yeah, indeed. I like that map, but that maps became a little problematic, because for every adventure it took an ages to prepare, because for every episode I will use a game terminology. So it was quite problematic to me to keep all time, because that maps it consumes a lot of time to prepare. If you want to have a good looking map, it takes an hours of day to prepare, and if you at one session you need 3 or 4, it's 1.5 months of preparation. So I've got the idea how to improve it. So I developed together with the system the modular maps. Print on your own modular maps. So there is a different, and I made different environments and so on, like Mars, terraform Mars, space bases, space stations, mines, and similar. And still, I'm doing these maps, and they are made in. Of course, you can everything which we are talking about. You can download it for free from my webpage. But this is made in a very clever way, because you can print all these maps on home. So you just make a bit thicker paper. You can cut them. It's on or A4 paper or letter if you are from US. You can download, give a scissor, and reuse them how many times you need. And every time, if you got a collection of these titles, you can build as big or as small maps as you need. You can also, let's say, embrace the sandbox structure of the game, which is I very like, because this with all this creative approach to different problems, it works with sandbox very well. But sandbox and a game likes maps for combat, for any stealth actions, or even for situational awareness. So it works very well. So even if the players start to improvise, okay, we are going to the closest moon instead of a planet, because they were not railroaded. Okay, I've got a moon here, and I can always start with putting a tiles and create a map ad hoc. So it's this is one of the aspects. I call this system simple 2,670 squares. There's a completely different environments. Still, I've got a lot of them. Now it's in kilograms. Of course, there's also a prototype. Not everything is published yet, but I'll do it all the time. Also, I started a few weeks ago. I started with my own miniatures in 15 millimeters. To be very, very easy, you can always download them, download STLs, and print them at any home 3D printer. The game is of course you can use any miniatures you want. You can use tokens and something like that, but it's at this game for combat the map is very important, as I mentioned before. So
I just want to
yes,
clarify for the chat, because
yes,
I just went and downloaded it on your Patreon,
yes,
and it initially you do have to sign up for a free Patreon, and Patreon likes to try and trick you into thinking there isn't a free level, but all you have to do is skip the paid levels, and it will give you the free level.
yes, exactly.
Um,
Exactly. I
just
started with some paid levels. Now everything is free. You can. I choose the Patreon because it's a very good platform for publishing anything. Because I've got it works like a blog, like a download page. If you want to make any donation, you can go to some level and
yeah,
support me.
I didn't want people getting confused when Patreon tries to trick them into thinking it's not a free download. So I just didn't want people getting confused.
It's everything is free. I don't
Um,
like.
I notice
I don't want to charge for anything
I
anymore.
notice you have a little video on your Patreon.
Yeah, of course.
Is it like a trailer for your game?
I it's a trailer. I will send you the. I've got a trailer of the game. Sometimes I made some trailers for an adventures or episodes. There's also the trailer of, let's say, a self-publishing studio I made a few
Okay.
years ago. But it's you can always look at it and
I'm just gonna
it's
pop
like
that in the chat so people can take a look.
okay,
I mean, after we're done, of
yeah,
course.
of course. So, but here this game is okay. Maybe shall we tell about what do you want to hear about more about the world or the mechanic or whatever? It's up to you. So, more rules about or the world universe. What do you prefer?
Did I get the impression this is a classless game? You said it
Um,
runs mostly on skills, so
yes,
not
yes.
like professions.
No professionals. There is a couple of starting professions. You have to start from something. There is a 12 starting professions and six, let's say, specialized corporate professions. But these professions, if you choose the professions, it gives you a starting skills, starting equipment, and that's all. But how you further developed your character is up to you. You need not you. Let's say your character can change your profession during the game. Why not? Feel free. But
Can you give me an example with one of the starter professions as to how you would make it unique to you?
okay, for example, we've got, if we look at it, there are a few professions like, for example, mercenary grunt, simple soldier. So he's skilled with rifle, of course, he's a soldier. He's got some skills with. I will open the document, please. So it's like here. Of course, you can open it. If you download it, you can open it also. So here, so for example, first starting skills, you've got any random culture knowledge. In the game, there is 6 different cultures. Let's say post-Western, post-Eastern, post-Afro-Latin, post-Martian, interstellar, and retro-engineered. So every character got, let's say, third specialist level on it, and this is the culture from which your character came from. All these skills are not only modifiers to roll or something like that, but it also adds some additional bonuses. For example, knowing a cultures means that, okay, you can ask the overmind for more details about the environment. If your characters have have enough enough skills, they can act in certain planets or colonies or something like that with certain culture without drawing any attention. You can ask the overmind for more information about the habits and so on. You've got also some little bonuses to negotiating with NPCs from the same culture because you think the same way. So this cultural aspect is quite interesting. But next, if we go to that soldier, he's a specialist in the rifle. Of course, he's a soldier. Specialist is a third level of the skill. He's got the cover skills because, of course, he's trained to it. He's got carrying optimization, so he can carry more equipment. He's got a tactical positioning, so he can get some bonuses in combat from a good position. He's got some basic skills in heavy weapons. He's not perfectly trained because he's not a combat specialist, but he can operate heavy weapons. He's got also a basic skills in pistols, like weapon types. He's got a basic military contacts, which means that he knows how to, let's say, he understands this military environment. And he's got a stamina skill basic, which means he can get tired a little less. Last starting possessions, he's got a little cash, rifle or energy rifle, extra munitions, and heavy or Carper's armor. Player's choice. And as a special perk, he's prepared to kill. This is how mercenary grunt is made. But if we go to completely different character, for example, corporate official. Why not? Do you like aliens? If you like,
I assume we're playing sci-fi games because we like aliens.
Yeah, everybody likes aliens. So let's talk about this corporate official. So first of all, like all characters with random culture knowledge, but he's a specialist in corporate contacts. So he can deal with corporation a lot. He can use it to get information, to get access, to get support, and so on. He's a specialist in negotiator specialist. He's got any environment contacts, with exception of blue collars, because workers don't like probably him. Solid one. So he can have a contact with academics, with underground, and so on, up to player's choice. He's solid in self-control. He got a basic economy in space logistic. This is a scientific skill. He's a basic in trade, basic in public skills, and infantry command as only, let's say, military skill, basic one. And the possessions, he's got a little more cash, small apartment or similar place on home planet, and monthly corporate salary and only pistol. And as a perk, he's got a Master of Fine Print, so he can check any contracts or documents for any legal tricks or traps and so on. So you can see that the same problem with these two can be solved completely different with these two characters using different skills. And imagine if you got a team which is combined from soldiers, technicals, scientists, and so on. It can create really interesting adventures, really interesting stories. Because, come on, RPGs is for storytelling first. That's my approach. Of course, it has some cons. The biggest problem with this game that it requires a real strong personality of game master, because you have to be really flexible, really adaptive, and you can be really every time you can be surprised what the players how the players can use this wide portfolio of these skills. Of course, there are a few parameters of the characters. These parameters are borrowed from the war game, because it's quite similar combat, similar action. So parameters like a movement, which means how fast the character can move. Firepower, it's his skills in certain weapons. Range, defense, assault, and morale. That's all. No even there isn't any other numbers of parameters, and this comes directly from these statistics came directly from the miniature war game. But there's also some extras like a trauma points or wounds, because weakness and similar, but this is a different story. But maybe if you notice, there's no hit points in this game. Your character can be simple: lightly wounded, heavily wounded, critically wounded, and dead. Very dead. If you are dead, you are dead. Simple. And what makes also this skill-based system quite unique, or maybe not unique because it was earlier in old Cyberpunk or other games. Maybe it's not visible here, or maybe a little. Here you've got the predispositions. Predispositions can be hopeless, average, talented, or genius. And it means how fast your character can learn the certain skills. And you gain the experience in completely in all these 6 skills separately, depending how you act, what are you focused on, and what's overmind will. And you can spend this experience from the certain area, certain category, only on the skills from that category. So if you got a skills in combat, and you've got an experience in combat, you can spend this experience. It's shown here. Here. Only on the combat. So, killing the entire village will not increase your empathy. Sorry. Quite natural. This makes any progression very. This level-less form makes a progression very natural. Let's say it's like some kind of organic growth of these characters, with no jumping from level to level, without boosting parameters too much. You can be good at something. You can be good and repairing things. You can be good or very good in shooting with your rifle or with carrying items, but you will never be overpowered. There is a limits from these skills. Also, if your character is not is hopeless, is not very skilled in something, he do not have a predispositions in something. First, it makes a progression on this field slower, but also sometimes it's limit the maximum level he can reach. If you are hopeless with something in some area, you will not get a third or fourth level. If you are average, you will not become the expert in something. You can be specialist, but you will not be the expert. If you want, so also the starting profession gets you a bonus in one of these predispositions. So if you are, for example, a soldier, if you choose the soldier will be better suited for combat because of their predisposition and so on. So you have one level up. Let's say
So,
one. Yes.
so studying hard enough does not overcome natural talent. Is that what I'm
Mm,
hearing?
yes, it's you can studying, but there is some levels. A predisposition can be some limits. If you are hopeless in something, you will not become the expert in it.
I am
You can be, let's say, you can study hard, but you cannot reach a specialist level or expert level in something
I
because
am I
simply you don't
am
have yes.
I am 5 feet tall, so no matter how often I try, I am never going to play basketball professionally. Is that kind
Exactly.
okay?
Exactly. If you are, for example, if your character is not very talented in psychological, he's hopeless. He don't understand the people. He will not become an expert in negotiation any times, or it will take so long that it will not be very, let's say, important in the game.
Got it.
Uh,
Okay.
So this is it. Also, there is some perks. There are unique skills which gives you some bonuses, and everything is. I try to keep it like in very hard sci-fi and a little noir, but it's in hard sci theme. So there's no any really supernatural skills. There is nothing which you can. Everything which humans can do, they can do in the game, but you will not start flying, or you will not become a telepath, or cast something like that. Uh, People can do okay. Some perks give you some a little, let's say, a science fiction aspects, like you can get an alien empathy, so you can feel a presence of the alien creatures, but it's nothing more. Also, if you develop your characters, they're also getting also traumas, not only positive but also negative aspects, especially if they are badly maimed, suffer badly, and so on, fail some tests, they get trauma points. And every 10 traumas gets you a random trauma. It could be simple, like a drug addiction, or your character can become an alcoholic, but also it can be completely feared of, I don't know, aliens, or it can be fear of a void. Imagine your character which fears of a void, and he's sitting on the spaceship. So he will cover with a blanket and shake and stay everything as deep as possible in this in the ship. Here we've got a combat, quite long chapter, because as I told it, it's quite, let's say, detailed, and combat itself, because it's on a map, is very tactical. So if you are not even, it's not very parameter based. You can, let's say, maybe not. And if your character is not very skilled in combat, you can still cope with it if you are smart enough and use the tactics. So you can get an enemies in crossfire. You can use a cover. You can try to sneak also, because also the same rules are using for any sneak any stealth actions. As interesting aspect, characters are the characters, of course, they got free wounds and so on, but there are also teams. We call them teams or the units. So if you want to introduce something which is some opponents, especially opponents which are very numerous, like bugs, or let's say low-grade opponents, like stormtroopers, you shoot, and every shoot kills. You use special rules for the teams. It's very nice because you can make all these combats with tons of opponents, like imagine a space bugs running and rushing from all sides, and these space bugs you can really put them, I don't know, dozens of tables, and they are just, you shoot them, kill them, and they are still coming, and you need not to care about a single space bug. So, but first of all, also any attacks and so on got a suppressive effect. So if your character is going under fire or is attacked, he can be stressed, suppressed, duck, and he can do nothing. Opponents the same. So it's also quite the teamwork works very well, because during a combat, because somebody can have a rifle, can suppress the enemies, and the guys with shotguns or grenades or whatever can get closer in the meantime, because the opponents are suppressed. So this unit is this section is quite maybe not complicated, because it's very simplified comparing to the war game, but it's quite expanded and quite detailed.
Would you say this is a combat-heavy role-playing game overall?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It looks like a little like let's say like a skirmish game. It's like playing in D&D with a map and miniatures, but it's still there is some role playing with it, using your skills during a combat. Okay, somebody got a better armor, recovered skills. Somebody can suppress. Some can use. Sometimes you can use even you are skilled in different weapons, and the weapons can differ, and you use them during the combats. All these combined skills of your teams, and
Yeah,
it's
I
much
was
more.
curious. You were using a lot of combat examples. I wonder if that was actually heavy I mean, different role-playing games these days have different levels of combat. Apparently, there was recently a game put out about like raising children, which
Mm,
obviously would have no combat, except maybe
yeah,
for sending them
you
to bed
can.
without their supper.
Okay, there is. It's up to overmind, because
Hmm.
and how you design, because it can be a combat heavy. You can make a military operation, and you've got ready rules for it, and you can use a big battle. You can put a lot of combat, but you can make an investigations, you can make a negotiations and so on, and you can go the same session without using any combat, without firing weapons. Especially, as I mentioned, it's a problem-solving RPG.
Hmm.
So somebody can use completely different approach to the problem. I can tell you, I've got during my one of the test sessions, many before the game of the release, it was something like my second session I even played. There was a small map with a situation. We've got with a few guards, and the team had to get the uh, get sneak and steal some parts from this spaceship. Very simple situation. Small map. It was something like 10 by 8 grids. You've got a few guards which were not very, let's say, smart guys. It was told that they are not looking like a professionals. They are just a grunts. And I was like, as an overmind, I was prepared that they will either try to pass through using these sneaks rules, or get by force, shoot everybody and get it by force. And I was really surprised because the guy who was playing a corporate official, he just get another player who's playing a big ground with him and goes and make them inspection. And I was completely surprised because it was something which I do not predict. And at this moment, I learned a lot about my own game. But it's much more. It can be much more interesting and complicated than I assumed. Because this guy came to this guy, make an inspection, get some booze from the let's say small guardhouse, and in the meantime another player sneak and do the job easily. So it was some kind of ingenious situation because how to avoid a combat. And
Yeah, I do like the sounds of the problem-solving aspect. I want to check real quick whether or not anyone in the chat has questions, or whether our here. Let me back this up. Do either of the other panelists have questions? I feel like I've been talking a lot, and I do want to make sure that people have a chance to ask questions before we move on to Interaxion games. There are a couple people kind of like in the background that were making noises about questions, but I don't think they actually put them in the chat. I have people who message me from like 3 different directions. So
I think it's interesting. There's, without getting into ours, there are some mechanical design choices that you've made in your system that are very similar to some of the ones that we have in our game, and I found that really interesting that two very different systems would have similar mechanics. Um, it sounds like, in particular with combat, and I know a lot of players maybe are interested in not using combat, but a lot of players like using it. So I was wondering, how well does your game work with theater of the mind style play in the way that your rules are written, or is it very tightly tied to kind of map and mini or map and token kind of play?
it's not very. Uh, it's not very bounded because you can play it without the maps, but I think it will lose a little without the maps, lose all this tactical aspect of the combat for sure, because one picture tells like 1,000 of words. So it's for a situational awareness and something like that. It's always better to use a maps. It's not fixed. You can do it without the maps, but it will be much more difficult for Overmind to do it, and also it will limit a lot of let's say possibilities of those scenarios. So especially for combat, these maps are quite important. And it was not a secret. It came from the war game. And it borrows a lot of mechanics from the war game, adapted to the grids and so on, standard square grids. So it's not. So we can use as a quite standard maps or map generators. So I tried also to make the maps on hex, but it's very nice. Hexes are great until you need to make a building. And if you want to make a building, it's a terrible. So I fixed to standard grids. Yeah, this is one of my maps. Just just print it and cut. You can do it at home or print it home. They are also a little scaled down, these maps, so they are not typical for 30 millimeters, but more for 15 millimeters, because you feel distances in science fiction better if the maps are a little scaled down. So it's not like a battle on the parking or in small rooms. You feel distances and you feel a difference between, I don't know, light machine gun with big range and shotgun. So it's purely visual. You can use any scale you wish, but it's always nice to keep these distances.
Um,
Uh, yes,
Sorry, you just there's a couple. Sorry, I thought you were done. There's a couple other questions in the chat. I wanted to make sure that we got to.
yeah.
Eraser asked how is easy is it for new players to get into this game? Like if they've never played a role playing game before, should they start with something new or can they start with this?
Okay, the only one thing which can be difficult really if you are very new, completely green, that there is no description in my rulebook what role playing games mean. This is the only one, because I was surprised because every role play rule book starts with description what is a role playing game. Sorry, not that one. I will not. I ignored this aspect, but I think it's quite easy, especially that now I'm introducing, because as I told you, the game was released half year ago, so it's quite a young project. It's very nice. I start with first of all. I'm going to start uh, the publishing new adventures, which are designed. I call them shorts. They are simple adventures, simple episodes intended for 1.5, 2 hours, perfect for conventions, perfect for short sessions if you don't have enough times, with certain limits. So they are made with pre-done characters. You have no limited inventory management. You've got only 1 or 2 plots in it, limited NPCs. They are inspired honestly, they were inspired by 19th century short stories in the newspapers. You know what I mean. They're like, we call them novella from, they're very limited. By the way, it's novella in English is something a little different, but it was like a short story in the newspaper. It's very condensated and so on. And they are very nice to introduce new people. Also, they are for experienced people. They are also very nice. And I also want to get this start easier. I want to, and I'm working on it. I want to start a few dozens. Uh, okay. Mm, in I want to introduce a couple of pre-done characters. Just print them and start to play. Choose whoever you want, start to play, and we will see how it works. You've got a simple maps layout, so everything is easy to set, easy to play, and if you want to, and you can finish it within 2 hours. I made it a couple of times on conventions for example, on MindQuest Con in Holland or in Dublin. I was in Dublin a few weeks ago, so I also introduced the short stories, and they are very great for new players.
It sounds like a good. They sound like good introductory adventures. The last question I have on here is: in this campaign or world, what items or technology are you most excited for other players to learn about? I'm going to ask you to stick to one because we're getting kind of low on time and I want to
What
make sure
what
these.
do you mean? What sort of items are more exhaustive?
Is it well, if it's a science fiction world, that usually means there's advanced technology of some sort or something like that. So I think what they're looking for is what's different in your world that players would be seeing for the first time.
Okay,
But
introduce it.
if you can stick
Intro,
to one favorite, because I do want these gentlemen to
one
be able to
favorite.
one
One
favorite.
favorite. Okay, in the word logic. Really, I wanted to make this word logical. There is, of course, different fractions. People are people. Also, people, and but there is a let's say, working economy. So the ships are traveling. There are prices. You can deal with trades. World's got a different imports exports. So it's not like sorry to say, I love Aliens, but it's a very stupid stupid movie. But I like it. But it's not like we've got one big corporation and which sends us teams just to hassle these poor xenomorphs and poke them all times. No. Yeah.
Careful.
Okay. I know.
Hassling aliens with this chat might get you in trouble.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. It's like, why don't you, Tani, just sending the certain next teams to just hassle with xenomorphs for hundreds years, and I don't understand it. The corporations are for earning money, not to poke and hassle the aliens. I don't understand it. So here, here there's a big logic of this word. I try to make it logical and varied. So there is, nowadays even a neighbor city can be completely different. So why every planet have to be the same? No, there is a completely different worlds, completely different cultures, which are also reflected in the rules, completely different fractions and so on. And this is everything is in form of one big sandbox. Just go, enjoy it, and create any adventures you want. Make a good stories in logic world.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And
Mm,
Seth and Travis, thank you for waiting patiently for
Can
your. Yes?
can I one more thing, because I don't know if I survive until the end. I try, because I read your let's say background, your interests, and I've got one gift for you. It's within a minute or so on my webpage. There will be a special short scenario which certainly you will like. You like horrors and cheap horrors, classical horrors, and for sure you will like it.
Okay.
So it's please keep it one moment. I just need to place it.
You're talking about my love of classical cinema, crappy horror, good whiskey, weird facts, and strange people.
Yes, 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 something like
All the
that.
things.
So now it's on the web page. It's of course, it's not only for you, for everybody, but I think you will like it.
Okay. Did you put it in the chat or the private chat or?
It's on the web page, so just visit the web page and download it.
Ah, okay. I was just on there. I'll have to go back. All right.
Okay.
So Interaxion Games. Tell us about the
Hi.
Altered World.
So, Altered World, yeah. Zooming out a little bit earlier, it may have been before we went live on this session, but you observed that in the market right now, there's not a lot of development in the indie sci-fi game space, right?
It's very strange to me. Like, you'd think that would be the area that had the most room for expansion.
I mean, space is big, right?
Yeah, I know, right? It's almost infinite.
So, you know, when you said that, you said something about the market kind of deciding, and that's really important to us. I could nerd out over that for a while, but that's probably a whole different conversation. Um, to talk about the overlap, what are the similarities between fantasy and sci-fi? Right, they're both speculative fiction. We're looking into what could be in a very imaginative way. And I think a lot of people like the sword and sorcery fantasy set. Obviously that's where the market goes. So our game is a big game. It's got a lot to it, and it has science fiction elements with high technology, cybernetics for days. Uh, we haven't really written a whole lot to get people off of the Earth yet, but we brought aliens into Earth, a couple of different species of aliens that are just fascinating to think about how their culture is going to affect how they interact with humans and humanity and each other, what it means to be alien versus what it means to be human. And the vehicle to explore all that through science fiction is very interesting to me. Greg, I saw that you had a question. Why are gnomes so awesome in Altered World? Well, gnomes are awesome everywhere, right? Um, and that's less a science fiction question here. If I understand right, um, really the highest we can hope to achieve for in science fiction is to insert elves into all sci-fi. Is that right?
No.
No?
I in fact have I in fact have some followers that would object to that. Like, I have one ongoing joke combo because I happen to like Shadowrun, and he absolutely loathes it because he says keep your orcs and elves out of my cyberpunk.
Oh man, we're gonna have problems then because we definitely have orcs and elves in the cyberpunk.
Well, see,
They're,
I
they're all
personally
swimming
don't
in the pool.
mind orcs and elves in the cyberpunk. I just don't consider it necessarily the highest pinnacle.
Okay, sure. Is it a pinnacle of science fiction? Even Star Trek had a whole bunch of different alien species that you could run into.
Oh, aliens are
Vulcans
great.
are space elves, right?
I'm a Babylon 5 fan.
But you've seen some Star Trek, right?
I mean the original series, so yeah. But
Okay, they had Vulcans. They had some Spock.
they did, but I would argue that the original series Vulcans were very far from elves. They just happen to have pointy ears. The
Indeed.
more modern ones, yeah, more modern ones are definitely.
Mhm.
I mean, they smiled. It was weird. That's when I stopped watching Star Trek.
Yeah, I probably missed a little bit of that. But
Yes, Eraser, you're absolutely correct.
what's he got for us? Babylon 5
Babylon
is
5
better
is
than Star Trek. Yeah, all
very
right,
different than
all
Star
right.
Trek.
I'll have to check some out. I have not spent enough time in Babylon 5. I watched I think the first season of it many years ago, and for whatever reason, I think this was back when things were still on DVD, and I just didn't have access to the next season or whatever it was.
It is now
Um,
free on Tubi.
okay, I've been put on notice. Okay. We like to talk a little bit about philosophy of gaming and game design and how we get to where we are. Um, for us, it, we talk a lot about story and a lot about character and how those things serve each other. The drum that I'll beat over and over and over again, if anybody's heard me talk about this before, which some of you have, the whole point of this hobby is that it's a collaborative storytelling experience, and each bit of that is important, right? I think that there's something fundamentally human about storytelling. It's one of the oldest hobbies that is available to us. You go back far enough, and when technology was tying a rock to a stick and really sort of exploring the wonderful world of leverage, we still had stories at that point. That technology existed. We were talking to each other around the campfire and creating the world around us, trying to explain the world around us, trying to create connection. And that's super important. So whether it's
Yes,
one person
absolutely.
at the campfire telling a story and the rest being an audience and listening, this hobby evolves that a little bit, right? Like we're all participating in it. So it's collaborative. And one thing I've really been focused on in the last year and a half is to have this perspective as the game master, as a player, that we're all around the table playing a game together, and the game master is just as much a part of that. They just have a slightly different role than the what we think of as the player characters, the PCs. So I think all of that's important to keep in mind when we look at what we're doing, game design, and why we come to the table, and what we want to share with people and what we hope they get out of it. Travis, I probably rambled on long enough about the esoteric stuff.
I do have to share. Hamsta is our group punner. Deep down, we're all gnomes. Heck, many people contributed to the Human Genome Program.
No, he didn't.
That's
Oh my
awful.
God.
So, as a way of segue, right, from this idea of the collaborative storytelling experience and into our kind of design philosophy, is, we are, we try to be really, really strong advocates in every aspect of our game of player agency. And some of that even goes into what doesn't get talked about a lot, right? Is the idea of player agency as it affects the game master, or game master agency. And part of where I think our system specifically does that is in our world building, in the sense that our narrative setting is structured in such a way where if you want to play super ultra urban, ultra dense urban cyberpunk game, you set it in New Tech Polis, and that's where your game happens, and that's what you've got. If you want to play sword and sorcery, you set your game in the Australian outback, where there's no urban setting at all, and you just don't bring tech into it. And so it, in we've been accused of trying to be all things to all gamers, and really what I think it really is that we want a game master to have the ability to play whatever game and tell whatever story they want to tell with their party at the table, without having to go to a new system, if they like the way the rules work, right? Like, and it can be difficult to divorce the mechanics from the narrative setting, sometimes, but we want people to be able to tell whatever story they want. You want to tell a horror story, we have mechanisms by which you can modify the core mechanics of the game to enhance the horror feel or an action adventure feel, or, you want to play a game that plays like a John Woo movie, like, go at it, right? Here's the make these couple of tweaks and go to the town. Um, and
So
so,
so wait,
yeah,
is Altered Worlds three GURPS book in a trench coat?
kind of, right. I mean, the game is, so the game history, right? The first words of this game were probably written down, I think, in 1988. And they were very heavily influenced by GURPS and Shadowrun once it came out. And we make no bones about that. The game, worked. The original creator is a guy named Mike Hill, who's our buddy, and he worked on it through the late '90s. And they had the game basically what they thought was ready to publish. And we're facing, in 1998, 1999, they were facing about a $20,000 publishing bill or printing bill to make a bunch of game copies and take it to Gen Con so that they could market. And they went down some paths that ultimately, in trying to get financing, it just never worked out. Right. Fast forward 25 years, Seth and I are on the phone, waxing nostalgic, about how much fun we had with the game back when we were on the playtest and design group. And he was, oh, it's really too bad the game is gone, right? Because Mike's hard drive crashed at some point, and I was like, well, I've I've been. Let me see if I can get it in the frame. Oh, this digital background is killing me. I've been lugging around this binder for 25 years um, with a proofreading copy, and Seth had Mike's phone number, which I hadn't spoken to him in 2 decades. And so we reached back out and got together with him and the other two creatives, a guy named John Moore and a guy named JP McCauley, who was the visual artist and illustrator. And we founded Interaction Games. We licensed the IP from them. So this is all kind of feeding off of that. And so we're, like I said, we make no bones about the fact that this is heavily influenced by Shadowrun and GURPS. It's fantasy mixed with cyberpunk, right? So you have that's Shadowrun tie-in right there. And then we use a point-based character creation system. And a lot of the mechanics were, I think, reactionary to the mechanics of the day that were, it was the heyday of second edition AD&D, and it was THACO and a little mechanically complicated in ways that ours isn't. And so that's kind of the history of it. That's how we get to today. And so Seth and I have spent the last 2.5 years going through the original rule set and updating it, getting it more consistent across the system, figuring out how to account for 25 years of gameplay development, and make it kind of more what people may expect, except for places where we specifically want to subvert those expectations. And back in August, we released that's when we released the Beer and Pretzels kit. The Beer and Pretzels kit name, from the conversation with you, I think it's really, really interesting, right? The Beer and Pretzels kit name was an homage to, in the game, it talks about if you want to play a Beer and Pretzels game. And frankly, that was the first time I'd ever heard that expression, like 25 years ago.
Yeah, it's beer and chips in Europe, I think, and beer and pretzels here. It usually references a game so easy you can learn to play it drunk.
Yeah, and so for
We
for
might need to
our
look into
concept,
changing that name.
yeah, for our system, it really we settle on that name in the sense of it's a free quick start. Like you don't have to commit to anything for something that you may not like, right? Because
Yeah,
we
so
we
let's
are,
plug that for just a second because you can go onto Drive-Through RPG and download it. It's free and I think it's got everything you need to play except the dice, right? And if you got
yeah,
two 10-sided dice, you are good to go. It's got some beautiful, beautiful maps in there, pre-generated characters. The rules that you need to play are in there, and the adventure itself is pretty replayable if you want to take a couple of different stabs at it.
yeah.
If you like trying to solve the problem from different angles, which I think is kind of fun, and we've seen people do that successfully and have a good time doing it. So that's out there. If folks want to try and grab it, we encourage that.
Yeah, and right now what we're doing is based on, we've gone to a couple of conventions here in Texas, and based on the kind of feedback from about 35 people who've never played the game before, we're making some tweaks to the rules, kind of streamlining stuff, in the sense that we're a crunchy system, right? And we make no bones about that. I personally think that that's a segment of the gaming market that is currently being underserved, are people who want a little more mathematical precision in the way that things play out with the rules. And so that's what we are. There's a, we struggle, not struggle, we really focus a lot of energy into trying to find that balance between realism and playability, that those two things are always in tension. The more realistic your rules are, the more physics engine your rules become, the more complicated they are, and the faster they play, the more you have to make stuff up on the fly a lot of times. And so and the more abstract they become. And so we try to find a good balance there, where there are the Seth and I have this. There's a set of rules in there for using
You're
machine
going to talk
guns.
about machine guns,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And we wanted to be able to. So the original rules, Seth hates um,
Math.
math higher than arithmetic, and the original way it was written, there was it's talking about degrees of arc and like traversing targets and things like that, and it wasn't written well, to be honest, in the moment, but we struggled for a little bit with, do we want to have this in there? And what we realized, or what I realized, is that if I have a player who, say, for example, was a machine gunner in combat and wants to role play the things that they could do with a certain level of precision in real life with their machine gun, then you have to give them some rules about how these systems work. And it gets a little complicated, but most people don't ever have to worry about it, right? Because it's kind of a niche application. But what we do to mitigate that is we funnel all of these different rules that are defined ways in which things work through just a handful of resolution mechanics. And we basically have two core dice rolls. We two double dice rolls versus single dice rolls. The single dice rolls, we call them target rolls. You're either trying to roll over or under a target. The fact that there are two there is one that we can't satisfactorily get down to just one, simply because um, we're a highly quantified system. Everything's got a rating. And so there are things where a high rating is not good for the player. And so we wanted to be able to say, okay, in this circumstance, rolling high above this thing prevents a bad event for the player. And there are other cases where rolling low is good. And then double dice rolls, essentially, we use a fixed DC system where it's the difficulty threshold for success is 20 on everything. And it takes into account your attribute and your talent rating and things like that. We are like your game, Marcin, we are a talent focused system. We are truly, well, we're what I would call semi classless. We don't have classes in the sense of a collection of abilities that your character has, where it's, I'm going to be a fighter and these are the things that I can do. We do have professions, but those are merely for convenience. It's a collection of 5 or 6 talents that relate to each other that you can choose at a bit of a point discount when you build your character. What we have, the reason I say we are semi-classless is because we have what are called Neashi, which relate to supernatural powers. And I'll stop dominating and let Seth talk about Neashi, because I think those
Sure.
are something cool.
Yeah, so when we talk about class, a lot of times that tries to encapsulate what abilities you'll have, but it also points you towards your role in a group, right? Like if I'm the fighter, people are probably not expecting me to pick locks or be good at the talkie stuff. So they can be limiting, and we wanted to avoid that. When we talk about the different Neashi that are available, and that's a made up word, a sort of science fiction word from an alien language in this game, it refers to different avenues by which people can access supernatural powers, because it is a mix of sci-fi and fantasy, right? And unlike other games where you might have a spell list that your class can access, what's cool here is there's one spell list. There's Travis, what's the number? 117 powers in
It's about 150 different
150.
powers,
Yeah, there's
and
a
then they're
lot
like
of
something like
powers.
30 different ways you can twist the
Yeah.
function of them on your
So
own.
150-ish powers, and then at the end, there's some variations that you can spice up your powers and make them unique. So, what is your job? What's your role? What's your class? Well, it's what you make it. One thing I like about that is that it means that there's not going to necessarily be a meta or a build that people have to chase, which always depresses me a little bit. It it actually it absolutely kills creativity once somebody has found the meta. And you know there's some creativity in hunting for the meta, I'll give you that. But once people establish what a meta is, or what a effective build is for the job that you're doing based on a class that you have, then you just start seeing cookie cutter characters, and that's not as much fun in my perspective. So when there's no defined way of being the best at a particular thing, it really opens things up. How do you want to open that lock? Like Marcin was saying earlier, right? Like we have a real similar approach, and I would really love that example that you had earlier, right? Like there's you're a soldier, okay, maybe you want to shoot the lock. I was really thinking about Star Wars, where Luke shoots the panel right there. But yeah, the hacker may hack it. The tech priest may whisper to the spirit of the Allspark and coax it open that way. You may be able to talk somebody into giving you the code if you've got time and the resources. Lots of different ways to get there, right? That's pretty cool. So there's, coming back to the Neashi themselves, there's 5 different Neashi, and then if you count not having one or being normal as one, that makes 6. The one that's going to sound real familiar to most people is Mage. We have one for priests as well, if they want to be able to sort of wield the power of the gods. And the others are going to sound a little bit funky. These words might not be familiar to most folks unless they've just been reading Altered World over our shoulders. But Sorane, I think of those as kind of your superhero ones. The mutants, to me, they're sort of a catch-all for how you get your powers. Ninshene, they are able to look into the time stream itself and pull things out of the realm of possibilities. From, if you think about it as sort of a quantum realm, they can manifest that into reality. And then there's the Calcatro, which just through sheer force of will can manipulate reality into being what they think it ought to be. And there's, obviously some lore and stories that get into all of that, and hopefully
Can
people enjoy that as much as we do.
can I ask what the difference is between that last one and the mage? Because I think that's what I always think of mages doing. It's just sheer force of
Abs-
will. They're like, now there's a fireball, because I
Yeah.
say
yeah.
so.
So mechanically, the difference is probably easier to explain it as a mechanical difference, right? The Calcatro is easy to fall under the moniker of psionics, right? They are able to use their powers quickly in game terms. As you do the timekeeping in the game, their powers happen more quickly, but they tend to be not as strong. Mages access an energy called logos, which exists in between dimensions, and that logos powers their spells.
Yeah, and so with mages, because they are channeling an external force through their body, one of the things that's also kind of a mechanical piece with them is that it is absolutely possible for a mage to cast a spell that will burn them to a cinder, if they were feeling particularly not enthusiastic about their health plan or something. They And so that's kind of the difference. Calcatro and Ninshane to me are almost in opposition to each other, right? So Ninshane are pulling possibilities out, and Calcatro are forcing their possibility onto the world. It's essentially
Yin
two
and yang kind
directions
of
on
thing.
the spectrum, and then mages and priests both are channeling a force that comes from outside themselves. Um, Priests, it's the gods. Mages, it's this force known as logos. and then Sorene, their powers are inherent to who they are and what they are. Is kind of the way to think through those. And they all have subtle mechanical differences in the way that the same power would manifest a little bit differently in the
Yeah,
game, depending on
they all
your Naosh.
access different powers more or less advantageously, right? So like the Sorene, some of their powers are just always on, and man, those are great ones for the Sorene to have. Those same powers, the mage might struggle with them a little bit, whereas where the powers where the mage really shines, uh, the Sorene, for instance, will be left a little bit behind on those. And then they all have a slightly different speed at which their powers will come online if you're clocking that in combat. So, you know, we like to say a prepared mage is a deadly mage. If you give them, a few seconds before combat starts, if they have an idea that combat is about to start and they can take a few moments to cast a few spells that are going to last a little bit of time, it's a bad day for everybody who has to fight that mage.
And that's actually, I think that's really a good kind of segue point to one I think are um, one of my favorite parts of the game. You talked about it in the description. It's the way that we do our combat timekeeping and our what we call response, or in the initiative system.
Hey, Trav, we got a question from Hanayama before we
Oh,
pair
yep.
off the direction.
Yeah. Priest is godly powers, where the mage is natural powers. I mean, kind of. The logos is, to me, I think of it almost as like dark matter or dark energy, right? It exists between dimensions, and certain people have a capacity to kind of reach in and pull that out and then shape it. It requires training and things like that, but priests are very much, what's interesting about a priest is their powers. They don't have to purchase ratings for their powers because their powers are not part of them. They purchase a deity pack that the deity has these powers as part of their profile, and then they can cast them at any rating that they want to, up to a certain threshold, and if they go beyond that, it starts taking a long time, like minutes to hours, to be able to cast their spells
That sounds like the
or
gods
use their
have a
powers.
dating app.
Say that again.
Part of their profile. I want to
Yeah.
choose a god. Swipe left, swipe left, swipe left.
I mean, it kind of is, and it's interesting too, because we make a really interesting point in here that, like, priests that are the Naosh priests are not inherently members of the clergy. That these are just people who have faith and are able to pray and receive immediate miraculous responses from the deities. Um, in fact, at least one religion in the game world, the actual like priesthood and the clergy are all mages. Um, so it's an interesting subtle difference from some of the other games that are
Yeah.
out there.
Hey, can we poll the chat a little bit here? You guys are real active, and I appreciate everybody asking questions and stuff. Travis and I can go on and on and on. We can talk about the mechanics. We can talk about the lore. Is there anything you guys are particularly interested in? Because we can probably answer your questions if it has to do with the game.
Yeah, we've only got about 15 or 20 minutes, so I was going to say
Yeah.
if anybody had any questions, it would be good to start throwing them out.
Yeah. So Hanayama-san, elements aren't really something that we utilize in this system. Essentially, you basically just your character just learns the powers that you want, and there's all kinds of different classifications. We have
The limitation is more what your budget is at character creation, right?
yeah,
It's a point-based
points.
system, so budget well, and there's some ways to make powers cheaper, and that's always fun. Once you get the hang of it and you start getting creative, there's a lot you can do to get what you want out of the powers. And then as you grow later on, XP is a spendable currency in this game. So there's two ways you can spend it. In the moment to modify dice rolls, which can be really, really important. You have all kinds of reasons why you want to succeed right now. Typically, like not dying is a good one to spend XP on. But once you spend it on that, it's gone. You also can spend XP to do things like raise your level or raise your magic theory talent if you're a mage, stuff like that. So there's this tension between how you want to access your XP, right?
Honey Amazon is a big anime fan, so hence I assume that's where the elements question came from.
And you
Yeah,
could
no,
absolutely build a mage based on elements if you wanted to.
yeah, but there's also like one of the other things that we allow for in this game is uh, joining powers. I sent Seth the other day. There was I don't know what show it was. It was one of the
The Flash.
DC. It was the Flash. There was this some guy's like getting held up and somebody shoots at him and he's all like stretchy man or whatever, and it immediately jumped to my mind that this is the manifestation of the power plasticity joined with reflective field, because the bullet like hits him and stretches out and then goes back and hits the other guy who shot it. It's just literally the only limitation to what you can do with powers is your ability to creatively combine things and figure out interesting ways there.
And
Uh,
bribe your game master, folks. Always, always, always bribe your game
Nobody
master.
does that anymore. I haven't had a game master bribe in years. Very
Sorry,
disappointing.
you got the wrong players at your table. You need to teach them. You know, a burger and fries can get you a long way.
Well, I will say we there are three of us that take turns hosting, and everybody like whoever's hosting cooks, and
Mm.
my other two hosts are both pretty amazing cooks. So yeah. Hamsta says, "Do you see your system as more suited for long campaigns, one shots, mini arcs, etc.?"
I think you could do any of it. Now, as of today, you're kind of limited to the adventure that exists out in the wild. There's not, we are not yet at a point where we're focusing really tightly on getting the mechanics right, and part of that is we're going to release an SRD with all the mechanics. It'll be on Creative Commons and all that, but we haven't dove too hard into what we call the Mayu or the narrative setting, just because that doesn't require a whole lot of work on our part. It's relatively set, and so once we get to that point, it really does. This is a game that you could, play long campaigns. It's essentially like, I mean, I think it, like I was joking around with you about editing costs. I think it's we're currently sitting at like 130,000 words or whatever. So it's like a 300 page book when it's all said and done.
Yeah, let me take a stab at that question for Hamza. For me, I'm just going to say long campaigns. Absolutely, that's near and dear to my heart personally. I like that. We are interested in storytelling and storytelling through the lens of character, and the best way to do that is to give a place for that to unwind. The way the XP system works, if you want to spend time with your character and watch them develop, well, you got to put time in playing them. So yeah, long campaigns is what I love.
My calculator says that at that you ought to be at about 260 pages.
Yeah, something like that. And that's all just in the mechanics side, right? We haven't even started looking at the word count on the milieu or the narrative setting. So
Plus, you throw a few pictures in there, that'll stretch
yeah,
the page count
yeah.
out a little.
So just
Let's see, Greg.
just
Oh,
a
sorry. Go ahead.
suggestion.
Uh-huh.
I know at least one person who developed a really, really good game, but didn't want people to ever have to buy multiple books, so he made a 600-page,
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah.
single tome, and what's happened is that everyone has looked at it and gotten really intimidated. So,
Yeah, no, we'll probably, especially given that we're going to release the mechanics as an SRD for free, right? There's certainly room for an omnibus book that's probably 350. But then there's also probably room for something that's just the milieu, because you can buy that and then pull the SRD, and then you'd be able to play the game. Um, so
See
I've seen some of those really huge books from back in the day, and they were intimidating for sure.
what you do is kickstart a box set that's got the art that goes across all three bindings. So they have to be like in the right order, or those of us that are OCD will throw a hissy fit.
Yeah.
So you're publishing it in a modular way,
I'm
or
sorry.
just like uh, are you publishing it like in modular way, or you prefer to stick to one big book? I'm I'm big fan because I'm asking because I'm big fan of in such project modular way. First of all, because it's very convenient for people, but you need not to carry a big book and search for it like here. Free books at the beginning, separate with core rules, expansion for with word description and with space combat. So it makes it very convenient for players. You can bring just one book with you. Also, it makes any updates because we are constantly, probably you are also update your game quite often. It's very convenient that people can, okay, change one of the pieces of this PDF, that pages will change it. You can print again 10 pages or 20 pages, not 600 pages. So it's like, I think it's very convenient, very comfortable for everybody to make
Yeah,
it.
I can see both sides, right? Because on the one hand, right, like the industry leader D&D, you got to spend $150 to play the game, right? But if you buy
No,
all
the
three
game
books,
master has to spend 150
yeah,
bucks.
sure,
Everyone
sure.
else just needs a pencil.
Yes, yeah, but
Ouch.
somebody's got to spend
Oh,
$150 to get the three core books. And so I like the idea on one hand of keeping it to one book that you can price in the $60 to $70 range for a good binding and high quality book. But on the other hand, there's the real thing of with a single book volume, what you end up with is that book gets passed around a lot among the players. And one of the ways that I think that we're leaning towards this is, or trying to solve things like that, is um, if we ever get to a physical copy, and that's there are real like practical limiters to do that. For example, we have a whole bunch of artwork from the original illustrations that are not scanned at a high enough DPI to print. They work well on a computer, but if you try to print them, they're not going to work. Well, that's a $30,000 bill to hire artists to go and replace all those pieces of artwork. And so that's a real practical issue.
Have you
And so, yeah,
I'm trying to remember what they're called. There are artists that put out art that can be bought for use in creative projects. It's not clip art. It's
yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
like Postmortem Studios sells a bunch of them. You can find a bunch of them on RPG.
Yeah, like the
My
stock art
background
stuff. Yeah,
my background was one, and I think it's one that most people don't use because I went to the least likely. I went to the artists that were not being used as much, so it wouldn't show up 20 zillion places. But this cost me I think $4, and I love the background picture on this.
yeah. I think one of the challenges we run into is that there's quite a few of our um, image concepts that simply there isn't anything out there like it.
Hmm.
Just as an example, we don't use generative AI imagery. There was a period of time where we did, and there are things that we simply could not get any of these tools to produce what we were asking for, no matter how we asked for it, because there's
Hmm.
nothing out there for it to pull from. And so we're not opposed to the idea of these stock art images. The real challenge is finding, it's hunting through a stack of haystacks for the needle that is representative of what we want what we want to put out.
So, the reason I even thought of the whole stock art thing in the first place for
Hmm.
me was we had Bradley McDevitt on the show. He does a lot of work for Goodman Games. He's done work
Hmm.
for Postmortem Studios, several other companies. And he said, I do stock art because it makes it more affordable to other people. The things that are just kind of standard everyday stuff, they can pick up through stock art. And
Yeah,
then when there's that one piece they need that's uniquely theirs, they can hire me for that. They only have to pay full price for one piece. It's still the same style as all their other art. Um, and it gets my name out there a little more at the same time.
sure.
Um,
Yeah, no, and we're not at all opposed to the idea of doing stock art for in places where it works, right?
mhm.
Um,
I like the
um,
idea of keeping the styles. I did a review last week, and one of the things we said was, the art was nice, but none of it matched.
yeah,
So,
Yeah,
um,
I think it's interesting if a book has like two, maybe three artists, and so there's those distinctive styles, but it's not so far out there that it's jarring, right?
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But to the question that you had, Martine, about the modularity of it, one of the ways that we intend to hopefully mitigate that to some degree is we intend to utilize some what seem to be kind of essentially underutilized formats, right? In addition to PDF and physical books, we're looking at an HTML release. Um, I watching the last episode talking about accessibility. An HTML format allows you to scale um, your font sizing very easily for people who are visually impaired or have start getting presbyopia, things like that. And then the other tool that we have really decided is something that we're going to do is, and we accept that this means that there's a little bit of profit loss when it all comes down to it, is the game is going to be released as an Obsidian Vault. When you buy the book, or when you buy it, you can download the Obsidian Vault and you'll be able to play the game out of Obsidian on your computer. I've taken to that. We use it to write the book now, and it is phenomenal. Being able to hyperlink within the vault so that you can find some things uh, that are quite easy to navigate. It's really a transformational tool, I think, for the play experience on the game master side. I'll say that. Um, so
Obsidian came up in a discussion the other day as people were debating the best way to take notes um, for a campaign for game masters to take notes, and my comment was, I'm just sitting here looking at the piles of scrap notes I have on my desk, organized into stacks depending on which game they belong to.
yeah,
Oops.
Did we lose Marcin? Looks like it. Um, yeah, Obsidian is a little bit of a challenge for me to get into the swing of. Travis has adopted it much more ardently than I have, and I find that when I use it, because I'm the same way, right? Like scraps of paper here and there, and whatnot. But once you get into the swing of it, the interface is intuitive enough. I think that you find that you have digital scraps of paper, and they're just easy to click through. It's
I
pretty good.
mean, mine are at least organized scraps of paper. I run like five different. I run five different games. They have to be organized scraps of
And
paper.
none of your
yeah.
players are bribing you. I swear.
Well, like three of them are online, so harder to get GM bribes online.
Do we
I
have
mean,
time for one more
DoorDash.
question?
Yeah, I think we can do that.
Okay, so there's one that it was about 10 minutes ago in the chat. What two aspects of the world lore are you most excited about? Um, I'll let Seth kind of lead
Oh,
off
I
on
got
this, but
an easy answer and a short one.
okay.
Whatever I'm talking about now, whatever's in front of me, and whatever's next. Uh, like, we've got so much in this game. I get really, really excited when we talk about the different Neashi and how they can interact with each other, just the way powers work in general. But as far as the lore goes, um, you know, top of mind recently, we were working on a story about what started off life as the Lorca's Avenger, and then after talking about what that would really be like, the Lorcas being a pacifist race, and what it would mean if somebody rose up amongst their people to kind of take revenge on uh, their oppressors and how they might react. It became more of a cautionary tale, and instead of the Avenger, it became the Fury. And now we've got a little bit of a story that's in the works that I think we're going to put on Discord soon, right, Travis?
Yeah, once you finish it.
I mean,
Details, details.
So from my perspective, I think the two biggest lore things that really kind of get my juices flowing. There's an alien race again called the Morthai. I think they are arguably one of the most unique species I've ever seen in any game. I love them. They're essentially a binary symbiotic amoebic organism. You basically have an amoeba with a cloak of bacteria that allow them to uh, become sentient. And they exist within the flux, which is the all of the possibilities of time streams, and they're just a really really interesting um, uh, species. Their reproductive cycle is requires three participants, and so then that gets into starting to have conversations about how would they describe relationships between each other. We settled on the idea that in conversation with non-morthi, they refer to everybody as cousin, aunt, uncle because that's a close familial bond that translates across our more binary reproductive system. And they end up being almost kind of like a mafia, for lack of an interstellar mafia, for lack of a better term. Not necessarily overtly sinister, but definitely inscrutable in their motivations. And then the other thing is there is a location in in basically California, because this is set in an alternate Earth, and it's a shaft known as Denu Battershell. And this was a place where it was heavily populated by very, very cybernetically augmented personnel or people, where an AI virus was released and turned basically everybody in the shaft into rage monsters. And they sealed it off, and only one person escaped. And so now it's this den of horror. And so to me, it ends up being essentially a location where you can have a cyberpunk mega dungeon where you can, because it goes like 5 miles straight down into the earth. And so it's just this really, really interesting location that is just ripe for adventure in my mind.
Sounds specifically like it would be ripe for the kind of adventures I tend to run on a regular basis.
Oh yeah. Lots of fun.
I get accused on quite a regular basis of being like the queen of the total party kill, but which
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
ironic because I've actually had very few of them. It's just that
You
they
just,
were very memorable.
yeah, you just got to put the fear of God into your players every once in a while, right?
I don't know, I've come to the conclusion that like they just are pretty good at putting the fear into themselves. They just make
Yeah,
assumptions that I'm going to do stuff.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
But okay, I'm going to shift people back around here so that we're back in the original order. And we are going to kind of wind down a little bit. If people want to talk about any events you've got upcoming, publications you've got upcoming, Eraser will put links back in the chat and I'll pop them up on the screen for everyone. Reminder, both these games are available for free. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So, Christmas come early. Everyone go download and take a read. Um,
and enjoy.
yeah. So are you doing anything else online in the near future, or any other events coming out, or videos or anything like that?
On our side, so there's two things. We have actually another interview like this tomorrow on another channel. Um, uh, I'll it's on our social media. I don't necessarily want to. I don't want to step on any toes or whatever.
No, no, that's fine.
Oh,
Have that.
so the channel is Mildra the Monk,
Okay.
and
I mean, I always like
they
finding new gaming channels. So
he did an interview with us a while back, and he's having us back on now that our product is out. Um, let's see, I'm participating in as a player in an actual play, doing a run through of Curse of Strahd every other Wednesday on a Twitch channel called Architects of Fate. Um, and then I'm trying to think. The other thing is that we're
the real the real Curse of Strahd, or the watered down 5e version.
it's the 5e version. It's not the number one, but it's fun. It's fun, and kudos to the game master. Like he's doing stuff that I don't know that I have the backbone to do. Like this is his first experience game master, and he's doing it live stream. It's pretty
That is
impressive.
pretty good. Yeah.
And then let's see, the other thing we've got, there's another Twitch group, Goblin Tuesday, that this is coming up next year. We'll be participating in a multi-system campaign that will run from Kids on Bikes to World of Darkness to Delta Green to us. And then we're
Sweet.
also, as part of that, we're probably going to run two separate arcs. And one of them will be a sword and sorcery variant of our game specifically. So you'll get the full blown version as we do it normally, and then stripped down to sword and sorcery as well. So that's kind of what we've got coming up. There's and then next year we'll be at as many conventions in the state of Texas as we can get to. Um, so, but that's
Excellent.
not till May or whatever.
Well, good luck to you. Um,
Thanks.
and you have stood up to the 3 a.m. time
Yeah,
zone very, very
uh,
well. What have you got
yeah.
coming up?
For no, honestly, no major plans at this moment. I burned all my budget for traveling conventions for that year. I was in Holland. I traveled to Ireland. I traveled in few conventions in Poland. So I focused on let's say playing here in Lublin. Anyway, in our Goat City, we call it Goat City because it's yeah. We have a goat in our coat of arms,
It's because goats are
and
awesome.
hmm?
It's because goats are awesome.
Yeah, but it's anyway. I'm going to within maybe few months. I'm going to visit some local conventions. Unfortunately, I'm not a social media ninja. Fortunately or not, I don't like social media. I keep it quite limited, only by Discord and my webpage. I know it's not very good for promoting, but it's costs too much and it's too much money and time. So at this moment, no major plans. Maybe next year some one maybe two conventions abroad, but it's also always quite expensive trips. So few conventions in here in Poland, maybe some local ones, and I try to keep the game running at local clubs from time to time. But
Okay.
otherwise, no major plans.
Okay. Um, uh, One of you gentlemen posted the website for your primary artist, but it doesn't let you post links. So if you want to send that to me in the private chat, I will make sure that that gets out. Um,
Just did.
I am
Thanks.
okay. Give me just a second. Despite the many, many jokes by myself and Eraser. EVMux is not normally that bad, except that getting to the private chat and back again is a bit of a pain. All right, so this is the artist's website. Yeah, it's kind of an ongoing issue. I think I have mentioned to at least one of you that I edit, and um, game designers will ask me all the time when I'm editing for them, like, do you know artists? Do you know publishers? Do you know? And I'm always like, no. I mean, I know a couple of artists, but I'm always like, there are so many scams online now. I'm always really afraid to like recommend anyone.
Yeah.
If I haven't met them in person. So I am the Eclectic Goat, as always. I am on here, Twitter, Facebook, Discord, Instagram, pretty much under all the same names. And let's see, what have I got coming up? I am on Daramuth's channel tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Weather permitting, I will be doing a review of Batman Returns with the Northern English Bastard at 2 p.m. on Friday. However, we have a whole lot of storms rolling through one at a time here, so either of those may change. And as many of you know, I have been working on a fundraiser for a new computer system because mine is terrible and I have to reboot it every time I need to do anything, no matter how simple. And sometimes it still dies. So that is winding down, mainly because I want to be able to take advantage of some of the Cyber Monday sales, which means I won't need quite as much in funds. So if anyone was planning on throwing in $5 or so, hopefully in the next couple of days, and again, weather permitting, hopefully by the end of the week we will have the new system and we will no longer be struggling quite so much. And you will no longer have to sit around and watch me play 2D games about being eaten by bears because my system won't run anything else. So I hope that everyone... I think the Patreon is in the chat already for Assault Publishing. I think Eraser has put it in there a couple of times.
It was published.
I hope everyone has had a wonderful night. I hope that everyone who needs to get some sleep. And I thank you all, both chat and panel, very much for coming. And happy headbutting.
It's a fucking goat!
Eclectic Goats got videos of indie authors and cinema love. A passion for the weird and the strange. She's snappily dressed and only slightly deranged. Come and meet the Eclectic Goat, lover of classics and whiskey notes, disciple of horror and the written word. Happy headbutting, come join the herd. Shows might be a little improper. We've got real zombie, fake whizzes the otter, pizza in one hoof, glass in the other, deciding which role-playing games we will cover. Come and meet the Eclectic Goat, lover of classics and whiskey notes, disciple of horror and the written word. Happy headbutting, come join the herd. Got a thing for black and white screens, crappy horror with low budget scenes. Choose on the history, spits out the lore. Time for another whiskey pour. Come and meet the Eclectic Goat, lover of classics and whiskey notes, disciple of horror and the written word. Happy headbutting, come join the herd.